Welcome back, baby doll. We're going to revisit the PulseX to PLS ratio. This will be one of the most common traded products, spreads, and talked about things when Pulse Chain launches. People want to know, what is the DEX doing versus the layer 1 chain? It is a heartbeat of the chain. If it's going up, it means there's heaps more speculation coming, right? Because people want to probably degen and gamble. If it's going down, it means we're in a limbo mode. People are like less risk savvy and they want to like stay in the safety of PLS, okay? This is on average. Anything can happen. Now, on the testnet, you can actually see what the trading ratio is. And right now, it's about 4-1. So if you type in, you can actually swap it, right? It's a CR1 to 0.22. That's what you get. If you type in 1 PLS, so if you fill in any side here, it'll fill it in for you. So you make 1 PLS, it gives you about 4.36 PLSX. This is just a test net. We don't know if this is going to be the true value. Funny enough though, this was about my fair value for it. So I was predicting, based off what I've spoken to everyone and how I feel things would play out, this is actually what I would guess. I was guessing around the 4-1. Kind of crazy, right? So we don't know if this is going to be true, but you want to see it on a chart. See, when it launches, you want to know, are you getting a good price or not? So what you're going to be doing is you are going to own PLS, right? Most people want to own PLS. Maybe you have a little, and if you have it, you'll be able to spend it if the poo-poo players sell PulseX too much. Now, obviously, you can do the other way, right? But I'm just letting you know it's very unlikely after everybody I've spoken to, the weak hands are not going to be FOMO buying PulseX. They're going to be FOMO buying Pulse. Okay, that's what I can tell the weak hands are doing. So we can actually see, right? So if you put in 1 here, it's 0.229. So I have the chart here, okay? And 1-1 is here, all right? So this is, let's actually write it down. So 1 PLSX equals 1 PLS, all right? 1-1 is here, all right? And if you have a value up here of 2, right, it would mean this price is actually, okay, 0.5 PLSX equals 0.5. So that's why these numbers get confusing, because you need less PulseX to buy it, which means it's getting stronger. So I'm just going to leave this number here, okay, because you don't actually need to know all these little things and these numbers, right? It's just what you're going to see on the screen, all right? So that's 2. Now remember, this one was 0.22, right? So you have 0, you have 2, you have 1. So let's put it here. Actually, let's just remove it. Okay, just so it's nice and neat. We have 1, the ratio here. We're going to have a 0.5. Okay, so this would be about 2-1. All right. And then you could even go lower, which is what we have now, right? So you're going to have 0.1. Remember, this is going to be a log chart. You can separate these out. The one it is right now, if you look at it, it's 0.223. All right, so let's just say 0.25. That's about where it is now. And we'll change this little color. So that is where it's on the test net. So you don't know where the volume is going to settle, how the ratio is going to play out. But if we just guess that it's going to land about there, then there's not much value here, right? So this is an extreme price, right? This is actually an extreme price up here. And it seems like the fair value is around 0.25. But we're just going to have buy zones, right? So from our previous video, watch it if you haven't. I explained a lot about the ratio. So if PulseX gets too cheap, so remember, this is a ratio, right? This is a ratio right here. If PulseX gets too cheap, this number will be lower, all right? So this number will be, so let's say they actually open up around here. And then all the weak hands FOMO sell PulseX to buy Pulse. So that means they are actually, see this product here, they're selling it down. Okay, so the chart here would go down. So they might sell it down like, oh, capitulation. Right, and this number is actually huge, yeah? At this price, 1 Pulse will give you 10 PulseX down here. So that is buy zone, right? Buy zone. So 1 pulse gets you 10 PLSX. That's how cheap it is, right? That's an extreme cheap down here, the buy zone. And we're going to have to make it green. Of course we are. So that's how cheap it is. 1 pulse gets you 10. Wow. Okay, but what if it went expensive? In the future, it'll probably go expensive, right? If one day it goes expensive in the future, it might be like parity, right? Where they're 1 for 1. So up here, you'd just be writing 1 PLS gets 1 PLSX. Okay, that's the sell zone. Most people, from what I've seen out there and how everyone's thinking about it, it seems like this is the range. It seems like if I delete these, the buy zone is for me and you. The buy zone is us saying, hey, based off what we think a fair range would be, we want to be buyers down cheap, this cheap. We want to be sellers up here. Seems like that fair value of 4 to 1 is where it might actually be opening, right? So I might actually see this is 4 to 1, this 0.25 value. So you can actually see here it's 4.37, right? It seems like that's around where it's going to be. And it's going to probably open up. There's probably going to just be volume up and down. That's probably what it's going to do over time, right? So during a bull market, you would expect more people to come to Pulse Chain, more people to speculate, swapping assets. PulseX has a higher beta, probably just like the DEXs, right? Because Cake went faster and higher than BNB, right? Uniswap went higher and faster than Ethereum, you know? So that's the Uni-ETH. Uni-ETH went up in bull. Cake BNB went up in bull, etc., etc. You can do these for other ones as well, okay? But then they crash in the bear. So the DEX obviously gets weaker because it's thinner, it's smaller, the activity drops hard, right? So that's the way you got to think about it. It's people in the casino, okay? So if we're just literally going to be zipping up and down, we're going to be zipping up and down, and you don't know how much fear people are going to have. Maybe they just want to sell PulseX because they don't know what they're doing. And if they do, you're ready to buy it up. If they don't, well, we can't do anything. We just got to hold the whole way, baby. Maybe at some point in the future, too much speculation comes in PulseX, right? That's possible. Maybe a deflationary narrative comes, right? So you always got to keep your mind open, right? You always got to be ready of this, because if you can see this thing coming a bit, you will be able to know, aha, I knew this would come. And hopefully you get it. Obviously, you now conclude for yourself, all right, that means there is a point where this thing gets too expensive. So maybe in a bull market, man, you don't know. Maybe people buy it all the way to parity. Isn't that nuts? And you might be saying, hey, man, like, I love PulseX, but it's equal to the same value as Pulse Chain. You got to think to yourself, in the future, will everyone keep coming for PulseX, or might they join Pulse Chain for different reasons? You know, NFTs, gaming, metaverse, all this other business stuff. More than just DEX trading, right? So that's how you can maybe think, okay, maybe it got too ahead of itself, right? So, you know, a lot of unknowns come because you're also going to have the buy and burn. That's another crazy part to think about, right? So, you know, we put all these together. At least you got a fair range, man. At least we know, okay, you know, we got a strategy. If people want to sell this down really low here, you're ready to buy. If in the first couple of days, it's like a 1-to-1, maybe you're thinking of selling. But it's most likely that the liquidity will be thin in these areas, because it's not likely you're going to have a lot of people who want to sell PulseX this low or buy it up this high. All right. Now, what would ultimately one of your strategies be? So why I like doing this is you don't have a liquidation risk, okay? So in your portfolio, you will be holding PLS and PLSX, okay, in your portfolio. And let's say you just have, right? Let's say you have 100 units of PLS, right? 100 units, whatever it is to you. Could be $10,000, could be $1,000, whatever it is, okay? You got 100 units of PLS. One way to earn yield is to bet on the ecosystem growing in an intelligent way. And using this ratio, you can do that. So one of the ways you can bet on the ecosystem is you say, hey man, I know fair value's here 0.25, but if you guys go down here, I want to spend some of my PLS, deploy it to PulseX, buy PLSX, and then I'm going to have a different portfolio. And in the bull market, I'm going to sell my PulseX back to Pulse up here. I'm going to get more yield back. So what ends up happening is if you walk through it, so you started with 100 units of PLS, right? Let's say people go stupid and they sell PulseX down and you buy some, right? So at this point here, you might have 90 PLS, 10 PLSX, right? This is what happens here, okay? And then you say, because this is a very low number, right? This is like, let's say it actually is 0.1. Let's say they actually sell it down this much, this ratio, and no one knows what they're doing. Well, in the bull market, 1, 2, 3 years, 4 years, however long it wants to take us, you might say, hey man, I've held it this whole way. I'm happy to take profits now, right? And how would you take profits? It'd be back to PLS, all right? And what you would do is, man, this is, by the way, this is absolutely insane. You've made 10 to 1 here, okay? So you don't even need to do it this much. You might be happy even with a 5 to 1. But let's say you actually did get a 10 to 1. This is why it's insane. Up here, you would have your 90 PLS original and 100 PLS because you've just sold it. You see this PLSX? You've sold it for a premium here back to PLS. So now you have 190 PLS, right? So you've actually gained plus 90% yield on PLS. That's your final result here. That is an intelligent way. You bet on the ecosystem. So what advantages here, right? Advantages of doing this. 1, no liquidation risk. 2, you bet on the system in an asymmetric way. And 3, avoid leverage trading whilst making yield. Okay, so many advantages here, man. Insane amount of advantages. But a lot of people ask me, hey, why don't you just do this for everything? Well, the problem is, all right, the problem is you can't do it for everything because there's so many permutations and combinations out there, all right? And a lot of the times you think you're being smart and a genius, but you're playing in the no man's land. You're flipping a coin. And the market doesn't really care about the ratio you're in, okay? It's just people buying and selling. Because a lot of these things, they get money injected in and then the money leaves out and no one cares ever again, all right? So if you are doing this, you're betting on the longevity of Pulse Chain and PulseX, right? And this will take so long to play out. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's possible, friends, when you come time to sell your PulseX back to Pulse here and earn your yield, we might be euphoric in the crypto market, right? Like literally, Ethereum might be 14K. Bitcoin might be 80K, right? Maybe Hex is like, I don't know, $3. I'm not saying they're going to go down from that point. I'm just saying like, yeah, Hex was cheap at 1.7 cents. Don't tell me at $3 is cheap, all right? So that might be happening. So at that point, you might not even be wanting to sell it into PLS. You might just be saying, I'm just going to cash it out. Or you have the option, right? You have the option here. You can sell all your yield, right? And keep some surplus. So you might actually sell 80 PLS into, this is 80 units, into USD cash out. Keep 10 PLS, keep original 190 PLS, right? So you've actually basically just used the system. So you've kept your original 100. Remember, we started with 100 here. You finished with 100, but you cashed out without losing your stack at all. Isn't that pretty cool? If this plays out. Now, of course, obviously it is the if this plays out part, because there are scenarios where this doesn't play out, right? There are scenarios, friends. So there's a chance that this happens, man. And, there's a chance that you buy. And what if the market just doesn't want DEXs, right? What if DEXs don't make a comeback? Now, I know a lot of people get angry, but I'm just saying, you got to consider this, man. What if people don't like DEXs? Maybe you thought 1 to 10 was good. Maybe it goes down to 1 to 20. And maybe you have to sit there for a year, right? What if it actually just dies? What if it goes like 1 to 25, even lower? And then you have to hope that in the euphoric bull market, all right, so if Pulse itself moons and then stops, you're hoping, so the bottom chart is going to be PulseX here right under it. You're hoping PulseX gets dragged up, and as Pulse Chain stops, that this like overshoots, which is a very common pattern, right? Have you noticed that's what Bitcoin does, right? I explained this in my previous video. So Bitcoin will flush up first in 1, 2, 3, 6 months of pumping. Then when it stops, which is the green part here, the squiggly lines, then people rotate to the excess leverage. They go down the risk curve. So you might be trapped in something like that for longer than you think. And yes, that is the risk, right? So, you know, you might find that, hey, you converted out, you bought PulseX using your Pulse, but what if the market doesn't want your PulseX for like another 12 to 24 months, right? So this is something that you're going to have to live with, and these are the risks you take. But that's why I said, man, it's a pretty good way to earn yield. You have no liquidation risk, friends. It's pretty cool. Yeah? You don't have to put this into liquid loans or any of these money markets and risk being liquidated and putting your collateral up and stressing about the prices moving. You don't have to worry, man. You're just sitting in this ratio. You're literally in a ratio trade. You've split your portfolio up to do this, okay? So that's why I've shown this to you. This is what I do. These are such macro stuff, right? So, you know, I've done this before, man. I've done this before. I did this with, you know, with Bitcoin. This is Ethereum, Bitcoin. This, you know, this is the exact same thing, right? So here was when I went all in, basically, like very, very, very hard, right? Converted Bitcoin into Ethereum down here, you know, because I was doing the maths and I was like, hang on, man. I was like, wow, if this ETH BTC chart, I was like, wow, if it gets to my target of 0.20 one day, oh my God, like, you know, you made a 10x on your Bitcoin from 0.02, which is this price, up to here, right? That's one Bitcoin becomes 10. So 10 Bitcoin becomes 100 up here, up there, right? So these things can be done before, right? But look, you can see now, even this ETH BTC is taken much longer than I expected. Because even with all the use case and everything, I'm like, the market still takes time to wake up to this stuff, right? So look at this. I'm like, come on, man. Who the hell is using Bitcoin, man? You should be much higher, right? So it's not like it's an easy free lunch. So, but if they want to give you absolute dirty poo-poo prices, we're going to take advantage, okay? That's why I drew this for you. I've done this for you in a nice, neat way so we can actually see, right? And it's actually going to be here, right? And luckily, the PulseX, this is the PulseX website on the testnet. It shows you the price. This is what I love. It actually shows it. So you don't have to do this guessing or anything, right? So on that day, you're just going to put in, right, 1 in the PulseX field. So let's say it launches, right? You're just going to do this and you're going to see, okay, what's this price giving me? And you're going to know straight away. You're going to know straight away what the PulseX pulse price is. And you can see, okay, it's 0.229, right? And then you think, okay, do I want to buy or do I want to sell? You're going to know this from the chart because we already know, right? We want to do anything less than 0.10. So where is this on the chart? If we just draw a line here, 0.223 is about here. That's what their price is, right? And you might say, yeah, well, you know, it's an okay price. It's not like cheap, right? You're going to have to decide that for yourself, you know? I'm just letting you know, the way I'm leaning right now, to me, I want cheaper. So before I convert my Pulse, whatever it is in there, to like go even more aggressive into PulseX, I want like a really good price, friends. I don't want like, yeah, maybe it's around fair value because you know crypto, man. You know crypto. Everybody says that they got fluffy socks on and they got slippers and they tell me that their posture's straight. And they show me how squeaky their chair is, but you still don't know. You turn your back, and then your friend's slanting his back again, straight away. All right? So if you turn your back on these weak hands, you don't know what happens, man. Maybe there's a Mt. Gox liquidation, Bitcoin, and people just lose their minds, right? And maybe PulseX is just more illiquid, so that happens, right? So always keep this in the back of your mind. We want deep, cheap prices. If it sits in this range, which is going to be, I'm going to delete these, friends, you know. If this sits in the middle of this range, which is literally this triangle, you know. If it sits anywhere from here, just do nothing, man. Look at this. The literally do nothing zone. This big fat zone of do nothing. Up here is going to be, think about selling. Down here, think about buying. By the way, this is buying PulseX. This is selling PulseX, okay? And this is a big fat do nothing, and there will be a banana emoji. Until next time, friends.